What up? What up? Good Monday morning. Let's just get into some pre-market prep and just jump straight into it. So I've been trying to start these off with a quick recap of some movers from last week, primarily from Friday, just to kind of knock those out of the way and then get into the more of the day one gappers that most people get excited about. So just a couple movers that we touched on, me and Sellers touched on last night that we talked about and we're kind of going over. Just a few here. So this first one, SFR, of course, as you see, huge move Friday into close and even more so into after hours. So this is up 100+%. Huge move from Friday. And when we were looking at the daily, it does get into some levels here with a little bit of resistance. 2 would be ideal. However, it's probably going to open close to that 2 range. So in these scenarios, what I would like to ideally see is more of a pop into these upper levels where it kind of just popped and dropped a demand zone, I guess, as they call it. But we'll see. I definitely don't consider this a true day one gapper, even though the gap stats on it are great. It's gapped 3 times, closed below, open 100% of the time, pretty much zero spike at open, and a nice backside payoff. But like I said, I don't consider this a true day one gapper. However, if the setup is there, the setup is there. So I don't like to go heavy into shorting something right at open, as most people probably know by now. But if we could get a pop, especially closer to 250, it is definitely something I would take and probably risk a break and hold of like that 275 level. And even if you look at the daily, this thing really struggled on these pop days to stay anything above 3. It was obviously very heavy above 3. So we'll see how it acts at open. Ideally, we get a pop. And, you know, the higher the better. If it goes to 3, that'd be great, because then it really gets into some tough spots. But volume will play a key role in it, because even on these daily resistance days, it never had huge volume. 10 million shares. It eclipsed that on Friday, so we'll see what happens. But that is the first one. The second one I kind of want to talk about is also one from really not Friday, but earlier or later into last week. It gapped up and it's held ever since the gap. So if it continues to hold, and this is why I don't like holding stuff overnight. Huge pop. This is a better view, but I mean, it's wild. Almost a whole dollar. Anyway, it has since obviously round tripped, but it's still holding this level. Like 3 is just a major line in the sand. We'll see what happens. It's dipped below it a couple times here on that run up day, but it immediately pretty much soaked it back up and it's held. So what we talked about last night was basically seeing this type of move, but after open. We would like to see that breakout above this, but during open, not at 3 a.m. The move may be done. We'll see what happens. Like I said, 3 is still definitely a line in the sand. If it fails to hold 3 and gets heavy below 3, that could be it. I mean, this thing it's essentially up 100%. It's up from $1.50. It's holding above 3. It's got up to 4. Like I said, at 3 a.m., this is the move we wanted at open. So won't spend a lot of time on that, but ideally we would like to see this type of move at open. If it does fail to hold 3 and stays heavy on the tape, like the buyers just aren't there, the sellers are showing up, especially with some volume, that could be the day when we finally see this thing fade. If I remember right, this is why I like our boys at FlashSec. I think this company is in some financial constraints. They got about 6 months left. They have some warrants at 3, which they could still dump at this point. And they do have an open S3, but it's been open for a while, so I don't get as excited about those. Like, why haven't they used it yet is the first thing that comes to mind. But now they're getting a little more strapped for cash than they have been. So anyway, we'll see. Typical small cap company. Obviously not very strong when it comes to financials. So we will see what happens. With that, let's just keep it moving to the last kind of day 2-esque setup. EYPT. This thing hasn't had a red day in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then it went parabolic. Closed here. We may be opening in first red day territory. I love a first red day setup. But if I look, this is why I like DOS. This is why I like having multiple charting platforms. That's not what I want. I'll just do it up here. EYPT. So part of the reason I like DOS, and I could put it in Thinkorswim, but I like to use both platforms. But you can see the red to green for the previous close line. So we're getting a little bit of a gap down, looking a little weak. If we could get a pop at open closer to this red to green, and you can see here right above it, there is, this is the volume profile, right? Volume by price. I love this. I love when there is a bunch of volume right here. Also a potential first red day, right at red to green. Huge volume here that is going to struggle to break through. This for me is like an A+ first red day setup. Doesn't mean it's going to work, but definitely means I am damn sure going to hit it. If it gets to that 9 level, I would love to see a pop to 950 and then probably break and hold of like 10 because it's obviously struggled there. And then if we look at it here on the daily, if I zoom out, it's pretty choppy, right? There's just not a lot of good areas where it's shown to struggle. So it kind of makes it tough to find supply, demand zones, resistance levels, whatever. But right at 10, there are some, right? So the big parabolic day, bounced off of it a couple times and respected it some here as well. Problem is with this, I like to find resistance lines with volume. This doesn't really have any. Not until you get, here's some volume here, but then you're getting closer to, 13s, the teens. We'll see what happens. This thing has, obviously, it's up huge. This thing started its run really at about $3-4 and has just kept going. But if we can get a first red day territory, get some selling pressure, I'd love to see it. And like I said, I love this red to green level. 9 to 950, probably risk a break and hold of 10. Like I said, when I see volume like this right around that red to green level on a potential first red day setup, for me, that's gold, A+. I would take it every time. Like I said, it doesn't mean it's going to work out, but I'm going to take it. So as far as a day 2 play or whatever, this for me is my favorite one going in. So gappers, day 1 gappers, right? This is what most people look for, play, want, whatever. And I would agree with that. The only real day 2 plays that have me any sort of excited is either AUGX or EYPT. I mentioned Wish last night, but I'm not even going to go over it because I'm not even going to go over it. It doesn't look like I have it on side watch. It'd have to do a substantial pop for me to get excited. But anyway, this screen here, these are the biggest 4 day 1 gappers. And I'm just going to put them into this multi time frame chart here. So TMPO, it's currently up over 100%, which is massive, but obviously it's a cheapie. And it's not super cheap. I used to never love dollar or sub $1.50s, but growth and such, So anyway, only other problem with this, it's not a new IPO. It is newer. It doesn't have a ton of history, but ever since it initially offered, it initially offered, got down to this level, and it has just stayed there. So there's not a lot of areas that get me excited at all. This is about the only thing that has me even a little bit excited. Some substantial volume. It did pop to a high of 290, but that is also substantially higher than where we have gotten to thus far. So the only other thing I like about it, it's only gapped up twice, at least 20%. It closed red both times. The average spike, not huge, and it had a much better downside potential. So I'm not saying gap stats are invalid or not useful. I definitely think they are, but it's just not the greatest daily in the world. So if we could get a lower high pop after open, closer to that 192 level, I would probably take that, risking just, a break and hold and continual grind above 2. And that's kind of just based on gap stats. And the daily has never shown any substantial real strength and hold. Here it had a nice little run, held, parabolic move, and instantly failed. So it's never really shown any ability to strengthen or to run and hold the strength. We'll see what happens. Huge gapper though. So ones like these, you just have to remember that you don't have to be early. You don't have to be first. There's plenty of backside room on this. I mean, my average gain is less than 10%. So this thing is up 100. I'm sure somewhere in this, I can have plenty of opportunities to get my 10, 15, maybe even 20% if I get, I don't say lucky with it, but, do well with it. Let's go over one more that I like this type of setup. Let me see. So I like this setup for a couple reasons. One, it's up a lot. It's up 65%. I don't love the price level as much. I wish it were a little more expensive. Just because data-wise, there's a bit more of an edge when it's a little bit more expensive on these type of setups. But regardless, obviously it had its run, and it's since kind of distribution, I call it, whatever. Failed VWAP, bounced once, bounced twice. So obviously it's showing some respect to that VWAP level. So I would like if it continues to get a little bit weaker into open and the old VWAP pop and drop. Very easy to identify the risk levels. For me, the target would be the 1-200 or a break and loss of the dollar level. And then I would just be done with it. Something just went crazy. MGRX. This one just apparently went crazy. Let me pull it up. Not really. Nothing crazy yet. Anyway, let me go back. Acon. So yes, I like these setups. It's a big gapper in the sense that it's up 70% basically, but it's showing some respect to VWAP. We still got plenty of time before open, so we'll have to see if it closes. If it opens weak though, these are the ones I like to take at that VWAP level. I mean, 140 VWAP. It's shown to be a nice level. We'll see what happens at open, and then just above that, you got your pre-market high not too far above. So in those scenarios, when VWAP and pre-market high are pretty close together, that to me is a pretty solid band of resistance levels across that area, starting at 140, even 150, and then to 160. So I would risk and plan and add accordingly, but those are the levels I would definitely look to play on that. Again, it's a setup I love. For me, it's more of an A-esque setup, but doesn't mean it's going to work. And the last one, I kind of want to see. I think it was this one. Nope, not that one. Yeah, so this one here. It looks like it's dead. Probably is dead, but the reason I like these is, well, right, it had the huge at 3 a.m. parabolic move and has since just faded into nothing. It's still technically up 30%, which is nice. Do I think it's going to make it all the way back up to VWAP? Hell no. It could. I don't think it will. But if it could make it back up to this level here, 275, where it's shown some early support, then it failed, right? Old support becomes new resistance. So if it could get to that 275 level, that would be something that would get me very excited. Or even close. oftentimes with these, I'm not going to wait until 275 to get in. I might get in at 255, 260 with the final, you know, add or entry closer to the 275 level. Those levels are just good levels of resistance or support or whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to wait until that exact level to get in. Sometimes if you wait, you can miss the move by even just a few cents. And that just depends on style, risk management, all those type of things. Some people wait for those outlier moves. There's nothing wrong with that. To each their own. But yeah, I would like that. And like I said, we got an hour before open, so VWAP could continue to fall. So by open, VWAP could be closer to that. Probably will be closer to that 275 level, especially if it continues into open like this. VWAP could also be at that 275 level, so another VWAP drop and kiss type of thing. I like those setups. They're kind of the forgotten. You know, it's not right now. TMPO is the hot gapper, right? It's up 100%. Probably got a bunch of eyes on it. Things like this oftentimes get forgotten, right? It's like the easier prey. So for me, I don't try to forget about these because these are the ones that usually present some of the easiest opportunity, especially on a Monday when everybody's looking for that hot play that they're chasing. So like TMPO, we talked about it. Not saying I wouldn't trade it, but it's gonna be probably a headache. Like I said, it could open and just fade all day long, but being the day one hot chick, relatively lower float. I think according to Trade Ideas it is, but I always like to double check with FlashSec just to see what the situation is. Broke as shit. Got some warrants way on up there. Still have a little bit of paper left to dump. Nothing crazy. They need money, but we'll see what happens. But that's, I mean, these things that I'm checking are what I check every single day on every single stock. Gap stats, the multiple time frames, looking for those levels of support resistance. I look at FlashSec, and I do like to digest the news. For example, TMPO. I'm not even seeing any relative news. Could just be a bogus ass pump. Probably is. Acon, let's see what the news on that was. Publication of durability data for the company's back pain treatment. Oh, bazinga. Well, let me see it unless I subscribe. Not doing that. So they put out some data. Who knows if it's real, accurate, whatever. But I at least like to see what the news is. And like I said, digest it nonetheless. Because things like TMPO, no obvious news that I can find. Could be something out there, but nothing that I can find. So probably just a bogus pump. So anyway, these are the four biggest gappers in terms of percent. We talked about TMPO, Acon. TMPO, like I said, is probably going to be a headache, but definitely something I'm going to keep on watch. Of course, Acon as well. And then we talked about ZVSA. Beat down to hell already, but if it can approach these levels, definitely something I would look at because it's still up 30%. So if it runs from here up to the 275 area, then you're probably up 40, 50%. That would be an awesome opportunity. I like those moves, though, in the first hour of the day. I don't like those moves in the afternoon on more of a slow grind. I like them in the first hour of the day on more of a parabolic type of move, because if I see this type of grind here up into it closer into the afternoon, I don't get as excited about it. So definitely want to see that move happen early and fast. So let's see here. And then these things, these are what happen in pre-market that I don't typically participate in. I mean, obviously it went absolutely ridiculous, crazy on not much volume. But this thing in pre-market went from 5 to 10, right back down, Now it's back down to 7. But like I said, very little volume. Not super low for pre-market, but still low volume. These are the type of things that can have huge payoffs, can also create huge losses, because let's say you get short into this and it starts going down and it rips back up. Pre-market can be a pain in the ass to get out, whether you're trying to cover on the upside, downside, whatever. Pre-market trading is just not my forte, but obviously there's opportunity, right? This is ridiculous. In 1 minute, this thing went up 100% and halfway back down. So huge risk, huge reward. But these are the type of things that also create day one gappers. So now, depending on how this thing opens, this is going to be a major day one gapper. And if I'm looking at the daily, 10's a pretty solid level. It has a huge gap to fill. We'll see what happens. This one's probably going to be wild. I want to look it up in the flash deck real quick, because I'm just guessing. I'm assuming that this is a low floater with a history of some fuckery, as they say. It's not a low floater. Damn sure moves like one. That's wild. Got some cash. Yeah. Crazy. We'll see what happens, because now more than likely it's going to be a big day one gapper. It's still up about 50% from its previous close, but we'll see what happens. It may just die so hard in the open that it becomes irrelevant. But those are the type of moves you get in pre-market that can create some huge gappers. Anyway, all right, we talked about stuff. I'm going to pull up Wish, even though I said I wasn't, and then I'm going to end on Wish. So as you can see, had this crazy run on rumors of a stock buyback, spiked again, and has since kind of fallen. But what I talked about last night was this 850 support level. What I would have liked to see, and would still like to see, is hold this 850 level, maybe a slight dip and rip closer to 9. I would attempt it at 9, but this has a history of meme stock craziness. However, they are in trouble, and it could just be a pump by the company to create some liquidity to exit their positions, because in the last year, a ton of Wish insiders have already sold out of their position. So this could create one last push for people to exit. So if we could get this push from 850 to 9, I'd get really interested in it. But these are the type of things too that can be a pain in the ass and can kind of grind higher than you think. That's kind of what happened to me and sellers actually on Friday. We got short into this. I think our first attempt was here right around 9, and obviously it just kept going, and we thought this was the move, and then it was done, and it grinded up again. We thought this was the move. You know, it was a headache. Obviously a nice backside when the backside came, but when does backside come? No one knows. Not for real. Anyway. I guess the news on Getty was a proposal to buy them out for $10 a share. That was fast. I haven't looked into it. The buyout rumor could be true, could not be true. If it is true, then it's going to rip back up to 10 and burn the shit out of shorts. If it is not, it is going back where it came. Who knows? Either way, I don't do the pre-market thing, but to each their own. All right, I'm going to end it on Wish. Getty's going to be right on up there. It hadn't popped up on my day one gapper scan yet just because of the volume criteria hasn't been met. But I think at the rate it's going, it will be here very shortly because the volume's starting to accumulate. For me, for it to pop up on a day one gapper scan, I at least want to see 1 million shares. Otherwise, the gapper scan for me won't even pick it up, or it could be 800,000, somewhere in that ballpark. But it's not quite there yet, but it's getting ready to be. Anyway, it's Monday. go into the week on a high note, trade safe, all that good stuff. Hopefully this was helpful. We'll keep doing it on Mondays. We'll keep doing our review thing on Thursdays. And we'll keep doing our normal stuff. But anyway, per usual, if there is comments, questions, concerns, likes, dislikes, let us know. If there's certain things that people would like to see us talk about in pre-market, let us know, because we can focus more on those. If you want more focus on a singular day one gapper in a more deep dive detail, we can do that. But just let us know. Anyway, happy Monday. Trade safe, risk management, all that good stuff. Peace.